Get ready for a night of timeless masterpieces as the Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra presents Eroica. The evening welcomes guest violinist Luann Lee to perform Mendelssohn's Violin Concerto in E minor. The concert closes with Beethoven's groundbreaking Symphony No. 3, Eroica. With its sweeping energy and bold sound, the symphony celebrates the triumph of the human spirit. Join the WCO on November 14th at 7:30 p.m. for Eroica. Tickets available at wcoconcerts.org/Eroica. Eroica. You know that one outlet you have that's obviously overloaded? Things to remember about November: there's less daylight, space heaters are coming out, holiday lights are going up, and that's an electrical stress test. For $149, Cardinal checks outlets, switches, circuits, panels, and delivers a report with plain English next steps, so you can host Thanksgiving without praying the breaker holds. Schedule now at cardinalservice.com or call 608-291-9551. This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Today, it's Thursday, so of course it's time to dish on Madison's food scene. The outcome for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, November benefits for hundreds of thousands of Wisconsinites is still in question. Joining me now for an update on how local area food pantries are weathering the storm is WayForward Resources Executive Director Ellen Carlson. Hi, Ellen. Welcome back to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So WayForward Resources is one of Dane County's biggest food pantries. And I just want to first off the bat ask you, how are you doing?
We're doing good. It's been a chaotic few weeks. It has been overwhelming. It has been amazing. We have seen so many people coming to the food pantry, and we also have seen the community come out to really support their neighbors in really incredible ways.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about that in the good news.
Yeah.
Some of the silver linings here.
Absolutely.
Well, your name, people probably already know you already, but your voice might sound familiar because I recently spoke to you, just recently on the show, right at the end of last month before food share benefits ran dry for nearly 700,000 Wisconsinites. And since then, in a short period of time, a lot of legal back and forth has happened. To sum it up, and buckle in, y'all, Wisconsin joined a coalition of states to sue the U.S. Department of Agriculture for those benefits. That court then ordered the Trump administration to release SNAP funds, and shortly after, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers moved to restore full November food share payments for Wisconsinites. Then the Trump administration appealed the first court order and got a new temporary block, which was followed by a message from the USDA sent out to states that said, quote, immediately undo any steps taken to issue full SNAP benefits for November 2025, unquote. To which our governor, Tony Evers, responded, quote, no, period. So then that challenge was challenged. It's been a whirlwind saga. Ellen, how has WayForward been handling this turbulent situation?
People in the community who need to use, food pantries and who have used SNAP are very concerned. They continue to be concerned. You hear things like, if they can do this once, they might be able to do it again. We've heard stories about people who have used, the dollars in their own bank accounts instead of using what they normally use their SNAP, and now they're worried about paying their rent at the end of the month. People are just really feeling unsettled, even with that money in their accounts, when they hear the news saying things like, hey, maybe we're going to make, Trump is saying maybe we're going to make people return those. And so people just don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know. Community members don't know. It's very confusing too, right? There's a lot of legal language. So that's happening. And then at the same time, our staff has been getting ready to serve more people and just kicking into really high gear. And that's happened. And also the community has come together in really astounding ways. And I know that other food pantries are seeing this as well. Just people who are so concerned about their neighbors and really want to make sure that they have food to eat. People are handing us cash. They're making donations. They're working with their neighbors to run food drives and bringing food into the food pantry. It's been really incredible.
Yeah, and can you just give a little context in terms of like how many folks Way Forward normally does serve? I know that basically the flag was thrown being like, we cannot fill this gap,
Yeah.
but you sound so hopeful. And considering like how many folks you serve, has there been a commensurate response from the community that you're like, okay, we got this?
Yeah. I mean, I think we have to remember too that people have been without those benefits for days, right? And there are some people who maybe wouldn't have even gotten their benefits yet because they're distributed kind of on a cycle throughout a month. So, there was an early concern from people in the community, obviously, about what's going to happen. And so people were preparing both themselves as SNAP benefit users and people in the community as people who really care about people in hunger. And so we have seen a lot more people. We've had 171 new households sign up for the food pantry in a matter of a little over 2 weeks. We've given out nearly 1.5 times the amount of food that we normally give out. We're putting food on the shelves. We had one of our highest days of distribution last Thursday. So I think that we're keeping up with it. It has been chaotic. And also, I'm so grateful that people have that money in their accounts, because when people asked me maybe like late last week, how long do you think you can sustain this? That's a real question. I think that's a question on all sides of things, how the capacity of food pantries, the capacity of the community to give, the ability to sustain high levels of crisis for everybody, right? That's really hard for people. So I'm really grateful that they have those dollars in their account. And I also know there's so much uncertainty ahead in so many ways, which, we can talk about, but I think that we've been doing it, right? And the community has been doing it, and people have been coming and getting food, which I'm really grateful for. But it's hard to believe this all happened in like 2 weeks.
Right. It truly is so much and so quick. And I think what I'm hearing is that this is a crisis, and look at some of the systems that you've built and that they're working, and people are showing up. Like, and that is a heartening thing.
Yes.
Despite it's a yes and there is uncertainty. Right. And, for some context, as of 2024, Food Share, that's the program that distributes SNAP benefits in Wisconsin, provides those benefits to nearly 65,000 people in Dane County. And to put that into perspective, that's like the populations of Sun Prairie and Fitchburg combined. So, we're talking about real pressure on organizations and other food pantries for sure. I'm curious about like, who are the recipients of SNAP? Because I saw a U.S. Department of Agriculture report for households in 2023 that received SNAP benefits showed that 4 out of 5 of those households included children, an older adult, or persons with a disability. And I feel like that's a part of this story. Like, who is feeling the brunt of this?
There's a lot of misinformation out there, so I appreciate you saying all of that. I've heard people, politicians, give all kinds of information in the news that is not true about who uses SNAP and what you can use it for. I mean, I think people will be astounded by the number of people they run into in a day that are using SNAP, because it's a really large portion of our community. And people, for the most part, are working or they have a disability and can't work, over an age like say 65 where they can be, right? I don't know all the ins and outs specifically, so I'm not the SNAP expert, but I think people would be surprised how many people who are out in the community every day that they run into are using this program as a way to supplement their income, right? And so that they can pay their rent, they can pay their medical bills, they can make sure their kids have what they need, and they have enough food to eat. It's as simple as that, right? We need all of those things to be in our community.
Yeah, and I saw a video from the Milwaukee Bucks coach, Doc Rivers, and his message was basically like, I'm hearing so much misinformation about people misusing SNAP benefits, but children are the people who are using these SNAP benefits. And I saw in WPR that out of that 700,000, 270,000 are children.
Yeah.
So it's, I do feel like we need that context and that touch here. And I'm curious, if you're feeling like the government's been playing politics with people's lives here.
Yeah, it's scary, right? I mean, I heard this quote, I can't remember who it was last week, where they were just saying, it was County Executive Agard. She's like, people, this shouldn't be a political issue that we make sure we have food. And so the fact that this has become a conversation that is just ripe with political agendas it's sad to me, because people need to have food. And that's our goal, right? Is to make sure people have the nutrition that they need so that they can do all the other things in our communities and in their lives. Everybody deserves to be able to have enough to eat. And it's doesn't feel complicated, right? From that perspective.
Right. And that somehow it's some sort of massive fraud that's happening versus, getting food on people's tables.
Absolutely.
Imagine what it would be like to not be able to afford to put a meal on your table this Thanksgiving. Too many of our neighbors don't have to imagine. That's their reality. With rising food prices and cuts to food aid programs, food insecurity is a crisis in Madison. That's why Goodman Community Center runs the annual Thanksgiving Basket Drive. They're giving 4,000 families in our community all the groceries they need to cook a delicious Thanksgiving dinner at home. Everything from gravy, veggies, stuffing, dessert, and of course, the turkey. But they need our help to collect all the food and funds needed to fill all of those 4,000 baskets. If you can afford to do so, go to goodmancenter.org/Thanksgiving and learn how you can help. You can donate food, start a food drive, or donate funds. Together, we can ensure that thousands of our friends and neighbors have a joyful Thanksgiving.
When most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/CityCast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane Sihu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text them yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
Because there is still uncertainty about how this will all play out, should the food insecurity get worse, God forbid, but, what's the picture like in terms of our largest food pantries? I know that 6 of Dane County's large food pantries, y'all included, Way Forward, put out a release last week outlining the increased demand, and just some other piece of information. The River Food Pantry said that at the end of October, they experienced their busiest day ever outside of a holiday week as people prepared for empty SNAP benefit cards. And a similar story at Goodman Community Center. And so people are like very clearly utilizing these resources. But like, what happens come December? What other options are there, and how are you guys planning for that possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember this is all on the backdrop of food pantries seeing the most need that they've seen, right? It was not that long ago that we sort of sent out a press release sounding the alarm, and those numbers haven't gone down since that happened. So I think it's important to remember that food pantries, were already there, that people in our community were already really struggling. On top of that, I think what might be getting lost in all this conversation is that the big, beautiful bill made a bunch of changes to SNAP so that there are a predicted number of 90,000 people who are going to be losing their SNAP benefits starting next calendar year and beyond. They changed a lot of the rules around who can receive them. So there's going to be a lot more people ahead who are going to need support from area food pantries. And the housing crisis in our community, right? There's a lot of wonderful work being done on it. And also it is still difficult to find affordable housing in our community. And that means that people have less money, right, to pay for food. So these things are all related. And we don't know what's ahead. We know, for example, that the Emergency Food Assistance Program, TFAP, is a government program that sends food to food banks and food pantries throughout the country. And because of the shutdown, we know now that January's food will be delayed. We assume we're going to get it eventually, but we don't know when, right? So there's all these other pieces that are going to keep hunger and food insecurity kind of top of attention, I think, over these next months, years. And it's really important that we all don't just say, oh, this is done, right? And remember that there's still a lot of people in our community who are struggling.
Wow. So there is another cliff coming that you guys were already preparing for,
Correct.
already trying to make sense of. And now a different sort of crisis came sooner.
Yeah.
And I remember I talked to you back in June 2024 when that coalition of food pantries came together and put out the call and said, we need help. And I'm thinking about, like, is there a way to break this cycle of seemingly endless needs and limited resources, like as the federal government makes it increasingly harder or are looking to offer increasingly less for folks in the way of food resources?
That's a great question. If only there was an easy answer. I would say that from our perspective at Way Forward, housing is such a huge piece of this for people in our community. And so continuing to do whatever we can to keep up with being able to build more housing. More housing eventually means lower rents. So there's the whole piece of things that, people's budgets aren't just food. They're food and so many other things. So we need to keep our eyes focused on all of those different pieces of it so that we can pull together a way to live in our community that is doable for everybody. We need people of all incomes to live in every single community in this area. So there's a lot of pieces of those. I know that Olivia Perry with the county, she's in the, does housing work, and she always says that there's a million levers. And she used to always say, this is going to be magic if we get this all done. And she's like, actually, no, it just means everyone needs to focus and pull on the lever they can pull. And I think that there's something really profound about that idea that there's something everybody can do, no matter who they are, to make sure that our community is welcoming for everybody, right? And is a place where everyone can afford to live. It takes everybody together to do that.
And that affordability crisis, we're talking about it nonstop, and it truly is. It's one thing or the other. Well, if we can't, what are we going to do? The roof over our head or the food that we're eating tonight? And like really making that easier across the board, and everyone understanding what you lose when people can't afford to live here if they have middle income and lower income.
Absolutely.
It will be a different place.
It's a different place. And I think everybody can look around and spend their day thinking about all the people that they meet and they interact with and the broad spectrum of income, right, those people make. And I want every one of those people to live here still, right? So my life is richer because all those people are a part of it, and everyone needs a place to live. I mean, all of the pieces too, we see a lot of people with medical debt. It's just getting harder and harder. So we all just need to keep being there for each other.
Well, you said something really heartening at the top of this conversation about how you were afraid that folks would not come and use the resources. And I do want to touch on that a little bit because there can be a lot of stigma around accepting assistance. So, what are the sort of things you're saying, or would you say to someone who's struggling or could use this assistance but feels intimidated or shameful about getting food from a food pantry?
I know that every single food pantry is so welcoming, and their volunteers and staff are eager to be part of that solution in our community. One of our case managers always says to people, everyone has something to give, everyone has something that they need. And I think that is so true. If I look at my own day, right, I need support from all kinds of different people. And I also have lots to give, right? And every single person in our community has something they need and something they can give. And so I hope that people see that because the thing that they need today is food, they can also, and they are, I see it every day, giving kindness and compassion and to their neighbors. I see them going to work and giving their all there, right? They're giving in their community in that way. And so if what they need is some support from a local food pantry, then they should come.
And I'll do my little bit to try and help destigmatize, which is, growing up, our family, I've been into a food pantry and we got food there, and it's like, it's better than going without.
Absolutely.
And you survive. Sometimes you have harder times than others and you can come out on the other end. But like, it's such a shame to go without what you need just because you're looking different today than you want to be. We're all in this together.
We are. I've been really heartened too by how many people I've met who have shared those stories over the last few weeks. I have met so many people who have told me stories about either their childhood or even just a couple years ago, right, where they went through a hard time and they used a food pantry. We've had donations from people who 2 years ago were housing unstable and now we're doing well and wanted to give back, right? People's lives are long and they need different things at different times in their lives. And I think when we can start to see our neighbors that way, right, that we're all in different places at different times in our lives. And that's just a fact because we're humans, right? I think it really helps destigmatize, needing to ask for assistance.
Yeah. Makes me think of the Jackson 5 song, like needing a friend, and being there.
Yeah.
It's like someday I'm going to need a friend too. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And it's really the local helpers are coming out. We're seeing local businesses really stepping up and with fundraising and offering free meals. And even here, our audience on CityCast Madison, the folks listening and folks reading the newsletter have been engaging with sharing donation links. You've said at the top, like, you're really heartened and seeing a surge of support. What do you need more? What can people do? Because I'm sure people want to be of assistance right now.
Yeah. I think it's just good to remember that, that piece that we talked about, that need is going to remain high and it'll fluctuate depending on what's going on. But there are always people in our community who, for whatever reason, are going to need support. And we make a healthier, happier, more stable community community when we know that everybody has food to eat. So continuing to engage with your local food pantries. There's ways to volunteer. There's ways to give. I mean, I know our food pantry loves even paper bags, right, that you get at the grocery store. We have to buy those if we don't get them as donations. So there's lots of ways that people can engage, even low cost. But I think keeping this situation where we were all sort of awoken, right, to this reminder that there are a lot of people who are food insecure in our community, while it has been absolutely terrible for people who have been in that position, I guess you could call it a silver lining, right? That like people now are paying attention to the issue. And I hope that people continue to, because there are so many ways, there are choices we make every day when we think about policies and, you know, kind of just what we want our communities to look like and how we engage in our communities that show what we prioritize. And just really remembering that there are so many people who could use some extra support and who are vital parts of our community is a really important piece of this.
Yeah. And, you know, before I let you go, for those folks who do need more resources right now, how can they connect with the resources available?
Absolutely. So I always tell people call 211 because they are the easiest way for you to get connected to where your closest food pantry is. Most of the large food pantries in Dane County do allow for anyone in Dane County to use them. So, and they all kind of have different hours and operate in slightly different ways that are often easier for, you know, people to use. So, you know, the River has a wonderful drive-through. So that's easier for some people. I know lots of people walk to and from Goodman. In our community, people drive and, you know, go through and shop. So different ways work for different people, different work hours, all of those kinds of things. We're all want you to come in and use the resource that's available to you, that your neighbors want you to have. I think that's an important piece to remember too, that when you're struggling, like there are people in your community who want to help you and they want to be a part of your life in that way. And that is what our food pantries are.
Well, Ellen, thank you for being a helper and for taking the time out of your busy schedule for this update.
Absolutely.
We really appreciate it.
So happy to talk to you, Bianca, and your community. Thank you.
That's Ellen Carlson, Way Forward Resources Executive Director. For more information about how you can get involved to assist local food pantries, head to our show notes for a link. That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm your host, Bianca Martin. Don't forget, you can support the show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this episode with a helper? And while you're at it, help us grow. Spread the word about CityCast Madison. Share this episode. We want all of the people in our community to know about what's going on and to be able to help if you can. It makes a difference. Alrighty, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, take good care and thanks for listening.